Hey guys, and welcome back to the Courageous Nerd YouTube channel for another interview. I'm Connor, and joining me is director James Cullen Bressack to chat all about his new film, Survive the Game, starring Bruce Willis and Chad Michael Murray. If you enjoy this interview or the others on the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe. So welcome, James, and thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
Connor, thank you for taking the time to chat with me, and thank you for your interest in the movie and watching it.
Oh, yeah, no problem. And obviously, yeah, as you were kind of saying, your new movie, Survive the Game, is what we'll be talking about mainly. But before we kind of get into that directly, I was wondering, like, how did you develop your interest in directing, and like, who or what inspired you to pursue it as a profession?
So at a very young age, I really loved movies. Like I was like, I was the kid that was like a walking IMDb. I thought it would be like fun to know, like,
Yeah.
hey, this, you'd say, hey, who was in this movie? I'd be like, oh, this guy. Like I like 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon was memorized in this head.
Yeah.
And my dad, I was raised by two show business veterans. My dad was a three-time Emmy award-winning writer. He passed away
Okay.
2 years ago. But he was, one of the head writers of Pinky and the Brain, Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, The Smurfs,
Mm.
Scooby-Doo. And my mom did voice acting. And so, I kind of grew up around it. And my passion for film came from, like, my dad would show me movies and he'd like pause the movie and ask me questions about it all the time. And like,
Yeah.
why is the camera doing this or whatever? And from there, I really started to, fall in love with the process of making movies and storytelling. And so, I mean, it kind of just became something that like I absorbed and wanted to do. And I remember, in middle school, like, my teachers would give me a book report. I would make a short film about why I didn't want to, do the book report.
Oh, okay.
And
Nice.
like,
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose kind of going back to Survive the Game, itself, like, how do you describe the plot for anyone who's unfamiliar?
I would say like the plot of Survive the Game is, Chad Michael Murray's character, falls asleep and he wakes up and an entire action movie is on his front lawn. Good
Right.
guys, bad guys, Bruce Willis, everybody's there just trying to wreck stuff, kill each other. Everybody's trying to like get out of this alive. And Chad has to navigate like this action movie out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's nonstop action. It literally, when I say it arrives on his front lawn, like it actually goes beyond the front lawn into his doorstep. He wakes up and people are just fighting in the middle of his house.
Mhm.
And I think from there, it's just nonstop action. It's good guys versus bad guys. And I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and obviously there's already, like, I guess almost an abundance of like crime thriller films already out there, but did anyone kind of inspire you in particular, like thematically or directing wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of inspiration throughout the whole movie. Like, I was inspired by like, the movies I grew up on, like the action movies I saw as a kid. So like, all the stuff Joel Silver was putting together, like a lot of the stuff from like, the '80s that I really liked. Like the the good tough guy movies from the '80s that like were a lot of fun but didn't take themselves too seriously. Stuff like Demolition Man, Cobra,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then like the Schwarzenegger movies as well. And I think like, the movie, in my mind is, it harks back to all of that stuff. And I, sprinkled in a little bit of like Elmore Leonard and
Mm.
with the dialogue. And I tried to have like a lot of fun with this movie.
Absolutely, yeah. And over the course of the conversation so far, you've mentioned obviously Bruce Willis, Chad Michael Murray, and obviously two very familiar faces, people who might recognize them. Like from your perspective, was there any pressure in directing them, or were you able to kind of like establish a good relationship from the start?
Bruce and I had a good relationship from the jump, right when I met him.
Mm.
And Bruce was really easy to work with.
Yeah.
And he brings like a lot of magic to the screen. Like, he has some ad libs in the movie that were not scripted that he throws into the movie, and like, it's stuff that really like I think lights up the screen and gives that like Bruce Willis charm. And he holds everything in the eye. So like the looks he gives is just it's just Bruce. Like it's just like,
Yeah.
oh shit, it's Bruce. And then Chad and I hit it off immediately. Him and I started talking like very early on before we started filming. And Chad became a good friend of mine. And I think Chad is an unbelievably talented human being, but beyond that, he's probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's
Yeah.
just like one of the kindest human beings there is.
Mm. I feel like for most people, like if you think of Bruce Willis, maybe the first thought would be Die Hard. So, like, was there any kind of I don't know what I'm looking for. Maybe like were you conscious and kind of not making sure he wasn't too like John McClane in this film, or like so the comparison wouldn't be there. If that makes sense.
I mean, I think he does a lot different stuff in this movie than he does there, but some of
Yeah.
the dialogue does become a little John McClane just inherently because Bruce is saying it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I mean, that's the issue with making movies like this. No matter what, they're always going to compare him to John McClane. But for
Yeah.
me, he's always going to be Hardigan from Sin City, because Sin City was like my jam. Like that was like, that was my favorite Bruce movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm not really too concerned about what other people are doing when it comes to stuff like that. Like I'm just trying to make what's best for my movie. So if it makes people think of John McClane, like great. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. To me, it's just like I did what was the most fun possible with the film that I was making.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose like on that note, if you could go back to the start of shooting and give like that James some advice about what's ahead of him, like what do you think you would say?
I would say it's really hot outside. Drink more water.
I mean,
No,
staying hydrated is good advice generally, regardless if you're making a film. So, absolutely.
Yeah, but no, I had a blast making the movie, man. I think it's one of those things. Like I think we got really lucky. We had an amazing cast and crew. It was just an awesome experience, and I really enjoyed it. I hope people can see that there was a lot of love put into this movie.
Yeah, yeah, and you're kind of saying at the start as well, like your reasons for going into directing, and I think maybe people might kind of assume it's like a glamorous kind of career and maybe like jump in without like fully understanding what they're committing to, like in terms of like financial stability and whatnot. So like, what do you think people should be more aware of before kind of deciding this is definitely what they want to do?
I mean, I think that ultimately the goals shouldn't outweigh the want to do the art. You know what I mean? For me, as a filmmaker, the first and most important thing is like the audience and people watching it. And I try to make stuff that I think, I would have found fun when I used to watch, movies as a kid. And I'm making stuff for like, teenage me.
Right,
what I mean?
okay.
I'm hoping that like, it reaches out to people that like, when I got super into movies in my my teen years, that's the stuff that like would really resonate with people. And I'm a film fan first and foremost, and I feel like for me, it's not about the money, it's not about this. Like I make movies because not only like a hunger to tell stories, but like I just enjoy the process in general. And I feel like I have a responsibility to my audience to put my all into anything that I do. So like, as if I'm on board of something, I pour everything I have into it, because like, I'd rather like die out there making it of dehydration than be at home going like, ah, man, I didn't try hard enough. And that's why people don't like it. Like, in my mind, I'd rather fail upwards. I'd rather like fail a little better each time than than just give up.
Yeah, yeah, and like just to the next question. In the past, or I've been asking this in relation to the rest of this year, but we're near the end of 2021 now, so I'll ask a bit differently. But it's basically, what do you hope to accomplish, I guess, in the near future? Kind of rest of this year going into 2022.
I try not to focus on stuff like that. I try to just I've been very blessed within my career to work as much as I have, and I hope to just continue working. I've been very fortunate that people have believed in me and what I'm able to do, and hopefully they continue to, and hopefully the people that watch my movies enjoy them. That's my goals, and I hope I continue to make stuff a little better each time.
Yeah. Yeah, and the last question I've got for you here is just to ask, where can people catch Survive the Game when it's out?
You can catch Survive the Game everywhere on VOD and Blu-ray on October 12th, and it's limited in theaters on the 8th here in the US.
Great. Yeah, obviously best of luck with the film and with your continued success in other projects going forward. And yeah, thanks again for taking the time. All the best. Take care.
Hey, thank you so much for talking to me. You rock, man. Thank you so much.